The objective of the organization, We the World, is to facilitate cooperation on a global scale amongst groups and individuals dedicated to implementing solutions to the many challenges we face on the planet at this time.
Welcome to the 11 Days of Global Unity Summit 2023. My name is Jana Larson, and I am coordinator of the Economic Justice Campaign for We the World, as well as filling many other roles for We the World. Today, I'm excited that we will be joined by Ambassador Anwarul K. Chaudhry and Audrey Kitagawa. For the 11 days summit schedule, you can register for free by going to we.net. Then you can participate in the after panel public discussions and see replays of the recordings. There you can also make a contribution to support us at We the World by going to we.net. Now let's bring in my co-host, Rick Ulfik. Rick Ulfik is the founder of We the World at we.net and the co-creator of 11 Days of Global Unity. Welcome to the broadcast, Rick Ulfik.
Thank you, Jana, and thank you all so much for joining us for this powerful discussion of peace at our 11 Days of Global Unity Summit. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Ambassador Anwarul K. Chaudhry. Ambassador Chaudhry has devoted many years as an inspirational champion for sustainable peace and development and for ardently advancing the cause of the global movement for the culture of peace that has energized civil society all over the world. As a career diplomat, permanent representative of Bangladesh to the UN, President of the UN Security Council, and Under Secretary General of the UN, Ambassador Chaudhry has a wealth of experience in the critical issues of our time: peace, sustainable development, and human rights. Welcome to the broadcast, Ambassador Anwarul Chaudhry.
Thank you.
Thank you
for that wonderful introduction.
Thank you
To this event. But I must say that I'm really honored to join the 11 Days of Global Unity Summit.
Wow, thank you.
I pay tribute to you because you are the founder of and We the World. I am very delighted to join you. We had been partners for a long time, and
yes,
we have done many things together, but this is a special occasion, so I'm happy to join.
Thank you. So, Ambassador Chaudhry, you've been working for decades to expand the culture of peace, and it's been my pleasure to see your progress and see what you've been doing all these years. But can you please talk about your efforts to engage civil society, UN diplomats, as well as representatives, and the UN Secretary General as well, in your mission to help shift the culture towards connection and unity that more reflects we consciousness that serves the common good? Mm-hmm. And are these efforts beginning to bear fruit, or are they being overshadowed by the rise of militarism, fascism, and authoritarianism, even in the USA, that are draining our collective resources and even the human spirit we need to address our greatest challenges, like climate disruption, the mass extinction of species, poverty, and war? What are your thoughts about this, Ambassador Chaudhry?
Thank you for giving me that lead by your question and comments. Let me sort of put a backdrop first about what we are going to talk about, regarding the culture of peace. The quest for peace is the longest ongoing human endeavor, but it runs alongside many of the things that we do on a daily basis. Peace is integral to human existence. In everything we do, in everything we say, and in every thought we have, there is a place for peace. We should not isolate peace as something separate or distant. Peace is not just the end of war or conflict. Real peace also means the end of discrimination, prejudice, injustice, and inequality. Every year, the international community commemorates the adoption by the UN of the Declaration and Program of Action on a Culture of Peace, which is considered as a monumental document that transcends boundaries, cultures, societies, and nations. That inspirational act took place 24 years ago on 13 September 1999, just a week ago from today's International Day of Peace. It was an honor for me to chair the 9-month-long negotiations that led to the adoption of this historic norm-setting document through consensus by the United Nations General Assembly. That document asserts that inherent in the culture of peace is a set of values, attitudes, modes of behavior, and ways of life. We take pride in saying that the United Nations Charter arose out of the ashes of the Second World War in 1945. The UN Declaration and Program of Action on Culture of Peace emerged in 1999 in the aftermath of the Cold War. Apart from the Charter, the Declaration and Program of Action is the only document which has focused so comprehensively on peace. Simply put, the culture of peace as a concept, as a motivation, means that every one of us needs to consciously make peace and nonviolence a part of our daily existence. We should know how to relate to one another without being aggressive, without being violent, without being disrespectful, without neglect, without prejudice. It is important to realize that the absence of peace takes away the opportunities to face the challenges of our lives individually and collectively. The culture of peace has remained one of the key items of the United Nations General Assembly since 1997. In that year, the Assembly proclaimed the year 2000, the Millennium Year, as the International Year for the Culture of Peace. In 1998, it proclaimed the period of 2001 to 2010 as the International Decade for a Culture of Peace and Nonviolence for the Children of the World. And of course, the Program of Action in 1999. Over the years, the scope of the culture of peace expanded following adoption by the General Assembly multiple resolutions on a wide range of issues relating to the various areas of the Program of Action. For the last 2 decades and a half, my focus has been on advancing the culture of peace, which aims at making peace and nonviolence a part of our own self, our own values, and our own personality. This has now become more pertinent amid the ever-increasing militarism, militarization, and weaponization that is destroying both our planet and our people. Never has it been more important for us to learn about the world and understand its diversity. The task of educating children and young people to find non-aggressive means to relate to one another is of primary importance. All educational institutions need to offer opportunities that prepare the students not only to live fulfilling lives, but also to be responsible and productive citizens of the world. The UN Program of Action pays special attention to the individual's self-transformation. For this, I believe that early childhood affords a unique opportunity for us to sow the seeds of this transition. We need to use this window of opportunity to instill the basics that each individual needs to become agents of peace and non-violence from an early life. It should be recalled that United Nations Declaration and Program of Action call for involving children in activities designed to instill in them the values and goals of the culture of peace. Education on human rights, the culture of peace and nonviolence, promotion of women's equality, and global citizenship are part of the knowledge and skills needed to be promoted for sustainable development. And this has been integrated in SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, Target 4.7. It also calls on the international community to ensure that all learners acquire those by the year 2030. Mandated by the General Assembly resolutions, the presidents of the General Assembly have been convening the annual high-level forums since 2012. The forum provides a platform for the member states, civil society, and relevant stakeholders to deliberate on the continuing applicability of the culture of peace in the contemporary context. And this has a very important relevance for the comment made by Rick about involving everybody in promoting the culture of peace and how successful it has been so far. The most slow actor in this process was member states, and they did not find culture of peace as something which will encourage them to get, as politics is, to get re-elected. So they avoided that focus on the culture of peace. But the President of the General Assembly in 2012 brought them together, that at least they should make a statement in the UN what they are doing about the culture of peace. And I believe that for 10 years it has gone on wonderfully, led by each year by the new President of the General Assembly. And also this forum has been the only UN gathering which was addressed by the largest number of women Nobel Peace Laureates. 6 times out of 11 forums. Also, the forum's panelists were always gender balanced, on most occasions with more women than men, as was the case last year. Often I am asked how the UN is doing in the implementation of the program of action. I believe that the organization should own it fully and internalize its implementation throughout the UN system. Also, the Secretary General should prioritize the culture of peace as a part of his leadership agenda. He should make good use of this workable tool that the UN poses to advance the objective of sustainable peace. Here, I would like to focus on one aspect with regard to our effort to promote the culture of peace. And I say, one soul-stirring inspiration that I have experienced from my work for peace, development, and human rights is that we should never forget that when women, half of world's 8 billion people, are marginalized, there is no chance for our world to get sustainable peace in the real sense. My work has taken me to the farthest corners of the world, and I have seen time and again the centrality of women's equality in our lives. Women bring a new breadth, a balance of vision and quality to our common effort of moving away from the cult of war towards the culture of peace. I believe wholeheartedly that women's equality makes our planet safe and secure. Unfortunately, the UN itself, despite its being the biggest champion of women's equality, has failed to elect a woman secretary general, yet to reverse the historical injustice of having the post occupied by men for its nearly 8 decades of existence. Before closing, let me assert that feminism is an essential component of a modern view on global politics. Feminism ensures a smart policy which is inclusive, uses all potentials, and leaves no one behind. I am proud to be a feminist. All of us need to be. That is how we make our planet a better place to live for all. As has been rightly said, without peace, development is impossible, and without development, peace is unachievable. But without women, neither peace nor development is even conceivable. Another missing element is, and this relates to your point about civil society, Rick, another missing element is the greater, regular, genuine, and participatory involvement of civil society in promoting the culture of peace, both at national and global levels. The role and contribution of civil society is critical. At the global level, the UN Secretariat should also make it a point to consult civil society regularly in an organized way, not in an ad hoc manner. So those are the points I wanted to share with you, Rick, about what is happening. And there are few things which happened recently, I should say, during the last 2 years. One of them is very encouraging, which involves the organization called Mayors for Peace. The Mayor for, and it's in a world, well-known worldwide. It has 8,200 cities, mayors, as a part of this organization, which is based in Hiroshima. It was sort of initiative was taken by, and you know him, Mayor Akiwa. And this organization in 2021 decided to include culture of peace and promoting the culture of peace as one of its 3 mission statements. The first one relates to nuclear disarmament. The second one relates to safe and resilient society, cities. And the third one is promoting the culture of peace. So this was a wonderful knowledge, and I find most of the women mayors are more interested in focusing on the culture of peace. And I was delighted to address them, and 80 of them came together to listen to me and other speakers. So that was a wonderful thing. And even as a terminology, culture of peace is picking up. And you must have seen the latest book by Pope, the Holy Father. His English version of this book is called Against War, Building a Culture of Peace. This is wonderful. I was delighted to see that they have decided to use the phrase in this. This is the first time that outside the UN Papal Office has used this term, and I am delighted for that. And I believe civil society, again, at the country level, they do a tremendously arduous job, but at the same time, they encourage us because they are ready, particularly women's organizations, ready to face any challenge. And they will not yield the ground easily. And that is what encourages me, that 50% of the world population are appropriately engaged in promoting the culture of peace. That's not a small affair. So that is what I wanted to share with you. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Ambassador Chowdhury. And thank you for your dedication and perseverance regarding not just the culture of peace, but also your working on women's equality and empowerment. You've been a real champion in that area for as long as I've known you, and I thank you as a man. I appreciate that you are putting your efforts in that direction. So I'm curious, one of the things that I mentioned when I was asking you originally about some of these questions, the work that you're doing, which I think is essential and crucial, the work at all of these levels. The question is that work being overshadowed by the rise of militarism, but also fascism, authoritarianism that we're seeing? There are people who are worried about the possibility that the elections may not work here in the US. I mean, and of course there are problems in many places around the world, but is your sense like this movement for the culture of peace, is it expanding as I hope and think of it, and we're working on that? Is that actually happening, or is this under this other tendency also expanding and possibly overshadowing the efforts that we're engaged in?
I will say very strongly, Rick, that bad or wrong can never overshadow the good. So I am confident that yes, this is a temporary phase, this rise of authoritarianism, and also conservatism, fundamentalism are really taking over the governments of various countries. And that is a challenge, big challenge. But these kind of challenges have come. We have seen in the past how Hitlerism destroyed Europe and all these things. But then rebuilding hope and aspirations came in. And I believe that these fundamentalist tendencies, authoritarian tendencies are a passing phase. This is testing us. How determined we are to promote peace. How determined we are to see our children and grandchildren live in a peaceful world. And that hope is very deeply held by women. That is what say, even politics, I sometimes say, when men join, no, when women join politics, they want to do something. When men join politics, they want to be something. And that is the tendency, that they want power, they want authority, they want wealth, maybe, and all these things. So I also believe that if the real focus on education is very needed, that children should grow up, and it starts actually with parents, that they have to show to the children like simple things like equality, treating your sister and the brother as equal footing, and never show a boy preference or a girl preference. A girl preference is very rare. In my part of the world, it is not there, like in South Asia. But South Asian women have stood up, like in my country, through microcredit and other things, and they have done well. So I believe that we should also ask for equality of participation. And program of action also mentions about democratic participation. I think democracy should not be seen only by at the benchmark of a free and fair election. Free and fair election is one of the elements of democracy, but there are many other things. And so what we are seeing these days is deficits of democracy. And that we have to overcome. We have to prepare people of each of the countries to consider democracy as the best possible. It is not 100% effective organization, effective institution, but it's still the best we have. And that is what we need to say. People have to believe in their democratic rights and democratic institutions. So that is why I believe that participation is also one of the 8 program areas in the Culture of Peace program action. So these are the hopes we have, and I never give up hope. There are challenges all the time, but I am a die-hard optimist, and I want to continue like that.
Yeah, that's great. And I am as well. So what would you say is a call to action then that people can take in an individual way? How would you like people to take action for the culture of peace?
Yes, basically what I said earlier is that I would like today's parents should bring their children up in a manner that they know that they don't have to be aggressive to reach their goals in life. People in educational institutions say, don't listen to anybody. Cling on to your dream and you will get there. So those kind of false, if one person gets the dream done, what happens to the 99 other persons? So that is why giving the false hope that you will be able to realize your dream is not a realistic thing. Try to say everybody that live like a global citizen. Know that whatever affects me can have impact on other people. And the other way around also, what happens in a distant land can sometimes catch us up. So that is the point that children should grow up with. Like my grandchildren, I have said that no color matching. Pink for girls and blue for boys. I said no, they are free to wear anything. I have told my friends or relatives no toy guns or toy weapons to give to children. You know, that is how they turn their mindset. So, and the word block that they use, I give to all my grandchildren how to spell peace instead of other things. So 5 blocks of war letters makes peace. And that is how I think everybody, and I think grandparents have a big role also. And I think the grandchildren listen to them more than their parents. And I think they are influenced by them in a big way. So we have an organization called Grandmothers for Peace, and this is wonderful. And I believe that this is how things will happen. So advice is that attend to your children, think that as your global responsibility, and then also I believe the member states, unless civil society makes an hue and cry about culture of peace, it will not happen. So, but I believe, because the focus for every political government or democratic government, if I may say, is to stay in power or get re-elected. So culture of peace, which is a longer term thing, it is not a, as I say, it is not a quick fix. It is a movement, not a revolution. So that is what we should understand. So it takes time, and patience is very important. And I believe all well-meaning people, and I think they are in majority, but they are a silent majority. They do not speak up. And now is the time to speak up and go to polling booth, vote appropriately, and then you will find things change.
Thank you, Ambassador Chowdhury. Now let's bring in Audrey Kitagawa. Audrey Kitagawa, JD, is president and founder of the International Academy for Multicultural Cooperation, president of the Light of Awareness International Spiritual Family, and chair of the Anti-Racism Initiative and the Gender Equality Working Group of the G20 Interfaith Forum. She is the former advisor to the Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Children and Armed Conflict at the UN, a UN representative for United Religions Initiative, a member of the Advisory Council of the Global Security Institute, and a board member of the International Center for Religion and Democracy. Welcome to the broadcast, Audrey Kitagawa.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So, Audrey, could you please react to anything that Ambassador Chowdhury said, and please talk about your work furthering the cause of peace? And do you have any reflections on the 2 tendencies that I mentioned? One toward militarism, fascism, and authoritarianism, and the other toward connection, unity, and we consciousness that serves the common good. What are your thoughts about this, Audrey Kitagawa?
Well, thank you so much, Rick, and hello everyone from New York City. You know, Rick, I really want to express my deepest appreciation to you and Jana Larson and your entire team at We the World for initiating this annual 11 Days of Global Unity, which always helps us to remember that we are one human family living on one earthly home, and our ability to get along and be in relationship to each other with love, compassion, and kindness will ultimately help us to create and live in a more harmonious and peaceful world. So I'm very grateful for the perspective that you give, from moving to the individuated I to the we in recognition that we do live in community and we must live together in the spirit of cooperation, for no one acts in isolation, and the actions and behaviors of one affects the whole community. So we must continuously work on our mindfulness in how we are in relationship to the entire community and do our best every day to have loving thoughts, words, and actions to maximize peace within the entire community. You know, it's such a privilege to be on this conversation with Ambassador Chowdhury, who's been such a champion for peace. And I really want to acknowledge you, Ambassador Chowdhury, as an inspiring leader in the development of a global culture of peace. You know, he's been instrumental in spearheading and creating the UN International Decade for a Culture of Peace and Nonviolence for Children of the World. And in this decade, a culture of peace is defined as consisting of values, attitudes, and behaviors based on the principles of freedom, justice, democracy, all human rights, tolerance, and solidarity. So it rejects violence and prevents conflicts by tackling their root causes. And this defining statement encompasses many of the concepts critical to attaining peace and demonstrates the complexity of diplomacy and peace building. But regardless of the complexity of the challenge, as Ambassador Chowdhury said in his remarks, everyone needs to make peace and nonviolence a part of their daily lives because war and conflict affects us all individually as well as collectively. And getting to the root causes is an effort that involves everyone, including women who, as Ambassador noted, must be included in peace efforts in order for these efforts to be sustainable. The world has been very fortunate to have a diehard optimist and feminist as Ambassador Chowdhury in the halls of diplomacy and as a powerful advocate for peace and the recognition of the importance of women as agents of transformation for peace. So my special thanks to Ambassador Chowdhury also for the tremendous recognition and respect he has always given to civil society and the large dynamic UN-affiliated NGOs who he recognized as instrumental in helping to create and mobilize a global movement for a culture of peace. So thank you so much, Ambassador Chowdhury. Now, Rick, with respect to the reflections that you asked me to provide on the two tendencies, on the one hand, militarism, fascism, and authoritarianism, and on the other hand, connection, unity, and we consciousness that serves the common good. Now, I want to say that we are constantly moderating between duality, the good, the bad, the happy, the sad, the darkness and the light, etc. And with respect to how our political systems and policies ultimately bring about militarism, fascism, and authoritarianism, you know, it really would be good to discuss the psychological perspective put forth by Erich Fromm, a psychologist who wrote this really seminal book, Escape from Freedom, which looks at the psychological reasons why authoritarian fascist figures rise. And very generally, he posits that when humanity cannot live with the dangers and responsibilities inherent in freedom, it will probably turn to authoritarianism. So this is a central idea of his landmark work. And this book is as timely now as it was when first published in 1941. Few books have thrown such light upon the forces that shape modern society or penetrated so deeply into the causes of authoritarian systems. And if the rise of democracy set some people free, at the same time it gave birth to a society in which the individual feels often alienated and dehumanized. It also created an unwillingness to be held responsible for the decisions which we make, and look to a strong figure who will say that he will take responsibility to take us out of our perceived problems and the complexities being experienced by society. So using the insights of his psychoanalytic background as probative agents, Fromm's work analyzes the illness of contemporary civilization as witnessed by its willingness to submit to totalitarian rule. And he used the rise of Hitler as a case study. You know, Hitler was popularly elected, but he was not a benign authoritarian. and he sent millions of Jews to their deaths through a systematized process of dehumanization that made it acceptable to exterminate them. And another important perspective is by Michael Clear, who wrote another seminal book called Resource Wars, where he looks at the growing impact of resource scarcity on the military policies of nations. And he maintains that wars would be fought not over ideology, but over access to dwindling supplies of precious natural commodities. Ideological language, however, will be used to mobilize and implement these wars. And the political divisions of the Cold War have given way to a global scramble for oil, natural gas, minerals, and water. And as the armies throughout the world define resource security as a primary objective, widespread instability is bound to follow, especially in those areas where competition for essential materials overlaps with long-standing territorial and religious disputes. And in his really clarifying view, the recent explosive conflict between the United States and Islamic extremism, for example, reveal a very predictable consequence of consumer nations seeking to protect the vital resources they depend on. So Resource Wars is a very compelling book and a look at warfare in an era of rampant globalization and intense economic competition. So the national security interests of countries will be determined by their ability to build robust militaries to protect, capture, and maintain access to these valuable resources, but increasingly limited natural resources. So as individual countries, through their sovereign status, represents in many ways the individual person who seeks his or her own self-preservation and self-protection, and can become quite territorial and acquisitive for material things that can grow way out of proportion to what we actually need for basic survival. We have built our self-image and self-worth and identity of success on how much and what we own. We have seen wealth concentrate in a very few elite hands, the middle class disappearing as the moderating fulcrum point, and the growing masses of the poor. As these disparities in power dynamics play out more and more, civil unrest and the fragility of our unity, democratic institutions, and freedoms may also go by the wayside. So all the more, Rick, I applaud you and all the work that you do to call us to remember that we must work harder to keep giving the good messages, because conflict ultimately helps no one and benefits but a few. And we must continuously build on cooperative models of engagement, because our ability to survive will depend upon our ability to live and work together in peace. So thank you so much, Rick. And with respect to the work that we're doing with the International Academy for Multicultural Cooperation, which I am the president and founder, we, really try to chart new pathways through peace, equality, justice, and a healthy, sustainable world through collaboration among people of diverse cultures and faith traditions. And we do this with a platform for our International Advisory Council members, who are scholars, faith leaders, activists, and humanitarians who share our vision for humanity. And we do envision a peaceful, inclusive path of justice, security, and well-being founded on the highest ethical and culturally informed perspectives. And our members contribute a range of cultural perspectives and cooperative points of engagement to navigate complex global challenges. And Rick, we find inspiration and guidance in the enduring cultural and faith traditions from around the globe, and adhere to these principles to inspire advocacy and meaningful change. And our efforts come in the form of online events, conferences, social media, and short films on topics ranging from food security, the environment, and indigenous values, from Haiti to Hawaii and beyond. So the interfaith and multicultural perspective runs through all of our works, highlighting the brilliance of diversity and the importance of the shared spiritual foundation that unifies our efforts towards peace and unity. So thank you so much, Rick.
Thank you so much. Um, can we have a call to action? What are you calling for, and how would you like people to take action so we can achieve the movement for unity, we consciousness, and like that? What would be your call to action?
Well, the call to action, Rick, is a very personal call to each and every person who exists in our earthly and human community. You know, we are comprised of sentient beings, of consciousness, and it is the responsibility of each person to really examine how we are living our lives. And in daily life, our thoughts, speech, and actions become all part of the collective consciousness and affects the lives of the entire community. And we each have a duty to spread peace by our own mindfulness, our own compassion, and developing the spiritual hearts so that we can more effectively and automatically implement acts of kindness. And we must find the inner discipline and do that self examination to see how we are practicing every day that we live. Because this gift of sacred life is the infinite possibility and opportunity to actually realize that we are on our holy ground and we must actualize the reality of the higher source here and now in our daily lives, because our lives itself are sacred. All lives are sacred, and we must strive to become kinder, better, and more peaceful human beings. And we do have individual responsibility to choose and choose wisely. Every moment that we live is a moment of choice. And there are many complexities and challenges in life, and we must choose dialogue, cooperation, collaboration, and respect for Mother Earth and all of her children. So, degradation of one is a degradation of all, and the upliftment of one is the upliftment of all. You know, we cannot escape the fact that we are interconnected, and change starts with individual commitments and choices and extends to the family, the community, the congregation, and the greater world. So, this call is a call to all persons everywhere around the world to take responsibility. And therein, I do believe, is the realization of the eternal freedom of the soul that is without limitation and never seeks to escape from this freedom, but ever moves towards understanding the realization that the soul is ever free, and that therein is our capacity to have consciousness, to receive the self awareness that we must all work together and move from the I to the we. So thank you so much, Rick Olfek, Jana Larson, and Ambassador Chowdhury. You know, it's such a privilege to be with all of you today. And on this auspicious International Day of Peace, September 21st, 2023. And to all of our listeners out there, may peace prevail on earth. Thank you so much.
Yes, yes. And before we close, Jana, did you want to say any kind of call to action? Anything that occurs to you?
Well, I certainly don't have anything profound to add to what Audrey said, but certainly peace begins within so that peace can come out and go everywhere. So thank you so much to Audrey for her beautiful words.
And I agree. Well, I think this has been a truly inspiring and powerful discussion. Thank you for being part of the 11 Days of Global Unity Summit. And Jenna?
Yes, thank you, Rick. Thank you to Ambassador Anwarul Chaudhry and Audrey Kitagawa. And thank you all for joining us to watch this beautiful show, 11 Days of Global Unity. And go to we.net to get involved. And don't forget to stick around for the discussion afterwards. Thank you.
Exactly. And, you know, as we usually do at the end of these panels, it's all about we, right? So let's go from a me society
This way?
to
Okay.
a we society. That's why we launched we.net. So together we can create a world that works
I
for
believe in
all.
that.
So much love and thanks to you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful.